Welcome to Work is Good, a CSM podcast. My name is Landon Buteau, and I host the show with my dad, Chris Buteau, the owner and president at CSM. Today's episode is a conversation I had with Sebastian Harris, who's the COO of Public Square. Public Square is an online marketplace that lists businesses that value freedom, family, and life. And Sebastian's been part of starting several different businesses, and he walked me through the process with Public Square, as well as just generally speaking the process of taking a business from idea to actually getting it moving, giving it legs, and getting it off the ground. So please enjoy today's conversation, and remember that if you are interested in getting a mortgage with CSM, go to clevelandstreet.com. All right, Sebastian, thanks so much for joining me today. Looking forward to talking. I'm going to go ahead and let you give an intro of yourself and just explain a little bit about who you are and a little bit about your story and what you're doing right now.
Yeah, awesome, Landon. Great to be with you. Thanks for your time. It's awesome. I'm stoked to be here. So thank you first and foremost. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Sebastian Harris. I live in Carlsbad, California. So in the blue state of California, but the sun is shining and that's glorious. I was born in Australia, Sydney, Australia. Grew up in New Zealand, so I'm a Pacific Islander, and I grew up in basically just rural New Zealand, which has been a phenomenal journey, and then moved to the U.S. about 8 years ago. Which is what really started my entrepreneurial journey into a number of different areas, specifically focused on missional organizations and places that really move the needle on culture, specifically politics, and how that all comes together through the lens of business and through the lens of commerce and how we build and grow and do things like that. I currently am the Chief Operating Officer of Public Square. Public Square is an app and a website, and the whole goal is to connect freedom-loving Americans with the companies that share their values. The values are we're pro-life, pro-family, pro-freedom, and we're excited to be on the journey to restore America to its greatness through commerce. So that's a little bit about
Awesome.
me.
Yeah, well, great. That's a pretty special intro. Cool story. And tell me a little bit more about Public Square. Like, what is your what are you guys actually doing? You know, conceptually, you're connecting freedom-loving Americans with businesses that support their values. Practically, what does that look like?
Yeah, great question. So we are an app and a website, and what we do is we list businesses that have agreed to our set of core values. And the future of that is to be able to have products and services that align with freedom-loving values on the platform, and we serve those up to consumers as fast as possible. So think about us like a freedom-loving Yelp, where you can find businesses that are local to you, but you can also find businesses that are around the nation that in every category that you can think of. I mean, we have categories from clothing stores to baby gear to pet gear to pet snacks to your local restaurants and coffee shops and places like that value freedom. And our values around freedom are very simple. We're pro-life, we're pro-family, and we're pro-freedom. And what that means is that we believe in America, we believe it's a net positive to the world, and we're pro-small business. So we want to put small businesses at the forefront of culture and into the proverbial public square as much as possible, and really serve consumers with getting the businesses that align with their values in front of them as quickly as possible. So mass discoverability at scale of businesses that align with your values, so that you know with the blessed assurance that the companies that you're supporting with your dollars actually in alignment with what you believe as a freedom-loving American. So we're excited about it.
Makes a ton of sense. That's awesome. I really appreciate that work. So what explain a little bit about your role specifically there. What are you doing there for Public Square?
Sure. Yeah, I'm the Chief Operating Officer. So what that means is that I help oversee making sure the company functions and look at building the systems and the structures that take the idea of Public Square and bring it to life through teams, through systems, through technologies, through different things that help build this culture. And so I've been responsible for scaling up the teams been responsible for building all of our operating systems, our workflows, prioritizing tools, navigating workflows with people, resolving conflict, working through the details of personnel management, but also building the systems and structures that are needed to build a company. So all the way from finance to talent to technology and all the things in between.
Yeah. So that covers a lot. How knowledgeable do you have to be about each, you mentioned just at the end there, finance and talent and technological structures. How in the weeds are you in each of those areas?
Well, with every good startup, when you start out as the founding crew, you do everything. So,
right.
There was a season where I was, writing code and just to put businesses on the platform, and I have no technological background at all.
Yeah.
So there's a bit of that. But I think a lot of good entrepreneurs are generalists in the sense that they can do a lot of things kind of averagely, and then the skill of building a business is hiring people smarter than you.
Yeah.
So if you can do that, then you can get pretty far down the journey.
Yeah, that's awesome. Doing a lot of things averagely. I like that.
It's good to have smarter people on your team,
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Then that's the only reason we are where we are is because we hired really smart people.
That's awesome. Good for you guys. That's great. How big is your team right now?
We are around 40 to 50 is about our range right now, with a number more kind of people on the side, but general team is around 40 to 50 right now.
Okay. And you guys are primarily in office?
We have both. We've got a bit of a hybrid culture as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Awesome.
Yeah.
Great. So I want to get a little bit into this this idea of taking an idea and turning it actually into an operating, functioning business. I constantly have ideas, and I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who are in a similar boat where it's like, man, this would be awesome, and you start to toy with it, and then for a variety of reasons, it never turns into an operating business. And I'm curious, you've done that a few times, so I'm curious if you can break that process down for us. From vetting the idea itself to seeing if it's worth turning into putting legs to it, and then the process of actually making that happen.
Yeah, it's a good question, Landon, because the process to building businesses is I think feels daunting to a lot of people. There's this idea that to be an entrepreneur and build businesses, you have to be an expert in a lot of things, and the reality is that's not true. But there is a process, and it's a very simple process, which is that not all ideas are created equal, right? Some ideas are some ideas are not as good as others, and that's okay, because most people who have ideas all the time have more ideas. And
so how do you sort those though? Like, how do you decide if when to take it to people's feedback and which feedback matters?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think you need to have a community of people that you bounce ideas off of. I think that's one of the most valuable things that an entrepreneur can have is people to talk to. And that doesn't mean that it's, you have to have a dedicated community of entrepreneurs. Just talking out ideas with different people all the time. This could be family, this could be friends, this could be anything like that, is really important. So the process of learning to process ideas is really significant to that process, because sometimes you might have an idea and it's really great. Like, I want to build like another hot dog stand. And that might be a cool idea if I live right around the corner from Yankee Stadium. But if I'm in the middle of nowhere in rural California, or in the middle of Kansas, maybe that's not a great idea, and so understanding the context, and the best way to do that is by just communicating and processing. So whether it's writing a blog, whether it's talking with friends, whether it's talking with your family, whether it's attending some kind of community pitch night where you have an idea and you flesh it out and it feels good, and you start talking to people about it, that's actually a really significant way to help that process. What we've done, and what I've done a number of times, is just continually talk to people. And I'm blessed because I have a wife who's very discerning, and she's very clear with me. If I had an idea and it's not great. Usually, what I get is this like kind of squint, this like
Yeah.
head tilt, and it's like
Yep.
maybe that's the key to that's not a great idea. Maybe think of
Yeah.
another one.
Yeah.
And other times I feel like I get an idea and I feel really great about it. And I've had this a couple of times, and I run it by somebody, and then I go buy a domain, and then I give it to somebody else to go and do. Or sometimes when you process these things out, it kind of lands. Another like fun way that I do that is, just to add that on, is oftentimes if I have an idea and I have an idea for a name and the domain is available, I feel like, oh, that's a really good idea. But sometimes if it's not available, that's a good check, a quick tip check that I do sometimes that's helpful.
Makes sense. Yeah. So how long are you in, I mean, generally speaking, how long should you stay in that idea phase? Because I think it can be harmful, certainly, to stay in that too long, in the talking phase too long. How long are you in that phase?
Yeah, it really depends on the idea. If the idea is related to an internal team and it gets traction from conversation, then oftentimes it moves really fast. And I think ideas that move really fast oftentimes can be really good, or they can just be the right decision for right now. But when building a business and talking about businesses and building them, oftentimes there's a real validation stage. So but the validation has to look like something. So often when we're talking about it, it's about, does this idea make sense? Does it make sense to the audience that I'm trying to meet and who I'm trying to equip with that? The key to get out of that stage is to starting to flesh it out. So what does it actually mean? And therefore, how much money do I need? What kind of people do I need? Is this idea going to work where I live, or is it an online company or business? Is this something that needs to be built and fleshed out? Is it a product that needs to be built? Who do I need to talk to with the right ideas? So there's kind of this process of talking to the people that maybe don't know about it, to moving to, let's talk to some people who know how to build some businesses and build like what it is that I'm talking about. Because if you want to build an app, you need to talk to technology people who've done and built apps before. If you want to build a microwave, then you should probably talk to a product designer who's built something like that before, to start thinking about what that looks like. So you move from this stage of friends and family to experts really fast, so that you can start to get that galvanizing process going. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I think Public Square is a really good case study for this, because the idea, the concept, is so much of what drives it. And I could definitely, like, I saw a comment, I don't know if it was on LinkedIn or where, maybe Instagram, on one of Public Square's posts, and it was someone saying, man, I had this idea, I wish I had done it. If only I would have done it. And it's really, this is the kind of thing where it's like, okay, but how do you build around it? It's a cool idea, but how do you actually turn it into a business? So can you explain that process, maybe in the context of Public Square, what the story was there of actually giving legs to the idea and building structure around it?
Yeah, that's a great question. The process has been kind of interesting because we've moved so fast. Now, not everybody moves as fast, and that's okay. It's okay to not move as fast as we have. But what we did was started reaching out to intentional people about validating the idea. So we talked about it amongst ourselves, and then we started talking to people in the industry that we knew. So this was people in the tech industry, specifically about building apps. And from there, there's a number of conversations that have to happen, right? You have to validate your idea with technologists and really start to go down that road. And we did that initially. We had Michael, who's the CEO, and he had a buddy who was a tech recruiter. And so his tech recruiter was freedom aligned, and he pulled 3 people together who were also values aligned, and we had a couple meetings together to validate this idea. And these guys were technologists, designers, marketing people.
Yeah.
And they started to validate for us the framing of our idea to be much more than just this concept and an idea, but actually, like, let's talk about this holistically. What does this mean? What does it look like? Can we validate this as an idea? And then from there, it was talking about, okay, what do we actually need to be able to do that? Like, if this is a good idea and we feel yes, and we want to move forward with it, what is the next step? And so at that point, we started some conversations with some lawyers and some potential investors to get some funding, and then started to build budgets around that funding from there to ask ourselves the question, if we're going to build this, what does it take financially, people-wise, legally, and then start building a roadmap from there. I think people have this idea about building businesses that you have a perfect business plan and you start from day one and it's exactly what it's going to be at the end. The reality is, like, our business plan is totally different now than what it was when we started. But the key was we got started. We actually did something, and doing something is better than trying to validate the idea more and more and more. Sometimes you actually discover whether it's a good idea by actually doing something. And looking to ask the right questions, but then taking radical action immediately, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. So I haven't looked. So we're listed on Public Square. We haven't put a ton of energy into optimizing there, but I haven't looked. Is your monetization in like featured companies? Is that where and is that the same as your idea when it started? Because I'm curious, when you started okay, let's get this freedom aligned companies and customers. How did you come up with an idea of monetizing that? And is it the same now as it was then?
So ironically, even after I just said that, we have the same financial strategy that we did back then. Currently today. So primarily our revenue is tied to advertising. So if people want to have more exposure within the application, business owners pay a certain amount to get certain levels of exposure, and the more you pay, the more exposure. Essentially, is how that works. But the future, and something that we're really excited about, is getting to e-commerce. And so what that means is transactions within the application and getting businesses and products inside the app so we can buy and sell inside of it. And so there's a lot of future plans, but none more significant than our current plan, which is advertising. Does that make sense?
Yep, for sure. Awesome. So I'll let you, we can start to wrap up here, but I do want to hear the process of taking, once you got going a little bit, okay, this is working. We just need to start to organize things a little bit in order to scale. When did you start deciding versus working so much on just getting out there and building the idea and the thing, building the product, and then starting to organize, okay, we need to now bring in people for this role and this role and this role and start systematizing things?
It's a good question. We've worked intentionally to try and figure out as much of that as we go. And part of that is demand based, right? So there was a time when it was just 6 of us in a garage, basically, grinding away. And then we figured out that we were just not sleeping and we needed more help. And so we had to figure out, okay, who do we need to help us and what kind of skill sets do we need? So honestly, a lot of it was just, we need more help. We're tapped. We're all tapped. We're working really hard. We need some more help. And a lot of that was about our developers to start. Then it was about salespeople. Then it was about marketing people. Then it's about finance and operations, and continuing to roll some of those people up based on the need. And we'll continue to be that way. One day we'll have thousands of employees, all things being equal, and it'll be built the same way. We build plans based on anticipated demand and anticipated growth as the company continues to grow and build. Validate those ideas across the team, and you got to have money to pay people. If you want people to work for you, you got to have money to pay them. So it's balancing the budgets to make sure. And I love business because it's really just a game, and it's when you know what game you're playing, then it gets really fun. And if you stop having fun, then why are you playing the game? So that's how business is to me. It's a big creative project to move the needle on culture, and to try to drive success and entrepreneurship across the earth.
Yeah, awesome. Really well said. I'll let you wrap up by pointing us either consumers or businesses. What's the best way to access you guys? Is it download the app, or businesses? How do you get listed on there?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the best way to get connected to Public Square is to go to publicsq.com. That's publicsq.com, and on that site you can add your business as a business onto the platform, and you can also sign up as a member to be able to search through all of our business listings. We have over 45,000 businesses on the platform and a very large growing community. Growing all the time, and so we're really excited about that. We just launched a brand new featured page about a month ago, where you can start to see some of the products and services a little bit more clearly on what to see inside the application. But again, publicsq.com. You can follow us we're on Instagram, on Truth Social, Facebook. On Instagram, we're official Public SQ, and we're excited. We're doing some cool things, and we'd love for you to be a part.
Awesome. Great. Well, thanks so much, Sebastian. Really appreciate it, man.
You got it. Great to see you, Landon.
Thanks for listening to Work is Good. If you enjoyed it, share it with someone else, leave a review, and listen next week.